The airport was a beast, swallowing hopes and spitting out chaos. Ethan Carter, 25, stood at the lost luggage counter of JFK International, his heart sinking faster than the sun outside the terminal's towering windows. He'd just flown 3,000 miles from Seattle, chasing a dream job, only to find his suitcase, his lifeline of clothes, resumes, and memories gone. "Sir, we'll do our best to locate it," the clerk said, her voice flat, eyes already drifting to the next passenger. Ethan's jaw tightened. Everything he owned was in that bag, his press suit for tomorrow's interview, his late mother's locket, the only piece of her he had left. He turned away, the weight of the day pressing on his chest like a stone. The terminal buzzed with travelers' families reuniting, business people rushing, but to Ethan, it felt like he was drowning in a sea of strangers. That's when he saw her. Across the crowded concourse, a woman with short, electric purple hair was sketching furiously in a notebook, her brow furrowed in concentration. She looked up, catching his gaze, and something in her warm, hazel eyes made Ethan pause. She was maybe a few years older than him, late 20s, dressed in a worn leather jacket and jeans, her presence a quiet rebellion against the sterile airport. She smiled a small, knowing curve of her lips, and Ethan felt a flicker of something he couldn't name. "Lost something?" she asked, her voice cutting through the noise as she approached. Her tone was playful but kind, like she'd seen his frustration from across the room and decided to step into his storm. "My luggage," Ethan muttered, running a hand through his dark, messy hair. "Everything I need for the biggest day of my life." "You." She held up her notebook, revealing a half-finished sketch of the airport chaos, with travelers blurred into streaks of color. "Just my sanity," she said with a laugh. "I'm Riley. Been stuck here for hours waiting for a delayed flight. Saw you looking like you were about to punch that counter, so I figured you could use a distraction." Ethan couldn't help but chuckle, the tension in his shoulders easing slightly. "Ethan," he said, extending a hand. Her grip was firm, her fingers smudged with charcoal from her sketching. "And yeah, I'm about one bad coffee away from losing it." Riley's eyes sparkled with mischief. "Well, Ethan, how about we make a deal? Help me kill time until my flight, and I'll help you survive this airport nightmare. Maybe we'll even find your bag." He hesitated. He didn't know her, didn't have time for strangers. But something about Riley, her easy confidence, the way she seemed to see right through his frustration, made him nod. "Deal," he said, and for the first time that day, he felt like he wasn't alone. They wandered the terminal together, weaving through crowds and dodging rolling suitcases. Riley led him to a quiet corner near a coffee shop, where they sat on the floor, sharing a stale airport pastry. She told him about her life as a freelance artist, traveling to art shows across the country, always chasing the next inspiration. Ethan opened up about his move to New York, the graphic design job he'd dreamed of since college, and the pressure to prove himself after years of feeling like he was running in place. "You're brave," Riley said, her voice soft but serious. "Uprooting your whole life for a dream. That's not easy." Ethan shrugged, staring at his hands. "Doesn't feel brave. Feels like I'm one lost suitcase away from screwing it all up." She leaned closer, her shoulder brushing his. "You're not your suitcase, Ethan. You're more than what you carry." Her words hit harder than he expected, stirring something deep in his chest. He looked at her, really looked, and saw not just the vibrant hair or the quick smile, but a quiet strength that made him want to keep talking, keep sharing. For the first time in years, he felt seen. As the hours passed, they laughed over airport horror stories, debated the best pizza in New York, and sketched silly caricatures of passers-by on napkins. Ethan forgot about his missing luggage, Forgot about the interview. Forgot about the weight of his past. With Riley, the airport wasn't a beast Anna Maria, it was a bubble. A moment where two strangers could become something more. But then the announcement came over the intercom. Riley's flight was boarding. The bubble burst, and Ethan's heart sank again. "Guess that's your cue," he said, trying to keep his voice light. Riley stood, slinging her backpack over her shoulder. "Guess so." She hesitated, then tore a page from her notebook and handed it to him. It was a sketch of him, his tired eyes and tousled hair captured with startling accuracy. A small heart drawn in the corner. "Don't lose this, too," she said with a wink. "And don't lose yourself, Ethan. You've got this." He watched her disappear into the crowd, the sketch clutched in his hand, her words echoing in his mind. He didn't know it yet, but that moment, that fleeting connection with a stranger was about to change everything. Ethan stood frozen, Riley's sketch burning a hole in his pocket. The airport's hum faded as her words replayed, "You're more than what you carry." He wanted to believe her, but the weight of his missing luggage and the locket inside it felt like a tether pulling him back to his past. He shook himself, refocusing. He had to find that bag. Tomorrow's interview at Vantage Studios, a rising graphic design firm in Manhattan, was his shot at a new life. Without his suit, his portfolio, his mother's locket, he felt like he was walking into a battlefield unarmed. He marched back to the lost luggage counter, determination hardening his steps. The clerk, a different one now, offered the same tired script, "We'll call if we find it." Ethan's frustration flared, but he bit it back. He gave his contact info again and left, deciding to scour the terminal himself. Maybe someone had mistaken his bag for theirs. Maybe it was still here, waiting. As he wandered, his thoughts drifted to Riley. Her easy laugh, her fearless way of navigating the world, it was magnetic. He pulled out her sketch, tracing the lines of his own face. She'd drawn him not as the stressed-out mess he felt, but as someone strong, someone worth seeing. He tucked it away, his chest tight with a mix of gratitude and longing. Hours passed. Ethan checked baggage claim, overflow areas, even the lost and found near the food court. Nothing. Exhaustion crept in, but he couldn't stop. That locket wasn't just jewelry. It was his mother's voice, her strength, her belief in him. She died 2 years ago, and Ethan had carried her loss like a shadow ever since. Losing the locket felt like losing her all over again. He slumped onto a bench near Gate 12, the terminal quieter now as night settled in. His phone buzzied a text from an unknown number. "Hey, it's Riley. Found something that might be yours. Meet me at the coffee shop by Gate 8. His heart leapt. How had she gotten his number? Then he remembered Ed had written it on a napkin during their caricature game. Ethan sprinted across the terminal, dodging late-night travelers. When he reached the coffee shop, Riley was there, leaning against the counter with a familiar black suitcase at her feet. His suitcase. How? He gasped, out of breath. Riley grinned, holding up a baggage tag. Found it by the rental car desk. Someone must have grabbed it by mistake and left it. I saw your name on the tag and remembered you gave me your number. Thought I'd play hero. Ethan stared at the suitcase, relief flooding him. He knelt, unzipping it to check. The suit was there, wrinkled but intact. His portfolio, his laptop and the locket, nestled in a side pocket, its silver surface catching the light. He clutched it, his throat tight. You have no idea what this means, he said, looking up at her. Riley's smile softened. I think I do. You look like you were carrying the world back there. They sat together, the suitcase between them, and Ethan told her about the locket, about his mother, her battle with cancer, how she'd pushed him to chase his dreams even when he doubted himself. Riley listened, her eyes steady, her presence a quiet anchor. When he finished, she reached out, squeezing his hand. She'd be proud of you. Ethan, you're here, aren't you? He nodded, unable to speak. Her hand lingered, warm and grounding, and for a moment, the airport felt like home. But then another announcement crackled. Riley's flight, rescheduled, was boarding now. She stood, reluctance in her eyes. I've got to go. But keep in touch. Okay. You owe me a coffee for this. Ethan laughed, the sound lighter than he'd felt in days. Deal. Safe travels. Riley. She waved, disappearing into the crowd again. And Ethan sat there, clutching the locket, the suitcase, and the memory of her. He didn't know it yet, but Riley wasn't just a stranger who'd found his luggage. She was a spark, and their story was far from over. The next morning, Ethan stood in his wrinkled suit outside Vantage Studios' sleek Manhattan office, the locket tucked safely in his pocket. The interview went better than he'd dared hope. His portfolio impressed. His passion shone through, and the creative director's nod felt like a lifeline. But as he left, his thoughts weren't on the job. They were on Riley. He'd texted her last night. A simple thank you. You saved me. She'd replied with a winking emoji and, you owe me that coffee. Airport boy. Now, walking through the city's electric pulse, he couldn't shake the feeling that meeting her wasn't just chance. New York was massive, chaotic, but Riley had made it feel small, intimate, like a place where two people could collide and change each other's orbits. Ethan found a cafe near his temporary Airbnb, a cozy spot with exposed brick and the smell of fresh espresso. He pulled out Riley's sketch, studying it again. The heart in the corner seemed to pulse, a quiet promise. He typed out another text, in the city for a few days. Coffee soon. He hit send, his heart racing like he'd just asked her on a date. Maybe he had. His phone buzzed almost instantly. Just landed in Chicago for an art show. Back in New York next week. Coffee's on you. Ethan grinned, relief and excitement mixing in his chest. She was coming back. He had time. The next few days were a whirlwind. Vantage called him back for a second interview, and Ethan threw himself into preparing, sketching late into the night, fueled by coffee and the memory of Riley's encouragement. But beneath his focus, a quiet ache grew. He'd always known he was attracted to women, but Riley was different. Her energy, her openness, the way she seemed to see the world in colors he'd never noticed. He wondered what she was doing in Chicago. What sketches filled her notebook now? A week later, true to her word, Riley texted, back in New York. Meet me at the Beanery, Soho, 3 p.m. Ethan's heart did a flip. He arrived early, the locket in his pocket like a talisman. The Beanery was crowded, but he spotted Riley instantly. Purple hair, leather jacket, sketching at a corner table. She looked up, her smile bright enough to cut through the city's noise. You made it, she said, standing to hug him. Her embrace was brief but warm, and Ethan felt his nerves settle. Couldn't miss my chance to pay you back, he teased, sliding into the seat across from her. They ordered coffee, and the conversation flowed as easily as it had at the airport. Riley told him about her art show, how she'd sold a piece inspired by their airport encounter, a chaotic swirl of travelers with two figures in the center, connected by a thread of light. You painted us? Ethan asked, surprised. Couldn't help it, she said, her cheeks flushing slightly. You were memorable. He felt his face heat up, unsure how to respond. Instead, he told her about his second interview, how he'd felt his mother's strength through the locket, how he was starting to believe he could belong here. Riley listened, her eyes never leaving his, and when she reached for his hand across the table, it felt like the most natural thing in the world. But as they left the cafe, walking through Soho's bustling streets. Riley's expression shifted. "Ethan, there's something I need to tell you," she said, stopping near a graffiti-covered wall. Her voice was quieter now, vulnerable. "I'm trans. I transitioned a few years ago. I don't usually lead with that, but I like you, and I want to be honest." Ethan's heart stuttered, not from shock, but from the weight of her trust. He'd never thought much about what it meant to be trans, but in that moment, it didn't change how he saw her. Riley was still Riley the artist, the hero, the spark. "Thank you for telling me," he said, his voice steady. "It doesn't change anything. I like you, too." Her smile was radiant, but there was a flicker of fear in her eyes, like she was waiting for the other shoe to drop. Ethan wanted to erase that fear, to show her he meant it. But as they stood there, the city roaring around them, he knew their story was about to get more complicated. The weeks that followed were a blur of connection and discovery. Ethan got the job at Vantage Studios, and his days filled with late-night design sessions and the thrill of creating something new. But his nights belonged to Riley. They met whenever her art shows brought her back to New York, stealing moments in crowded bars, quiet parks, or her tiny Brooklyn studio, where paint-splattered canvases lined the walls. Riley was a force bold, unapologetic, her laughter filling every space. But Ethan saw her quieter moments, too, when the world's weight seemed to press on her. She told him about her transition, the years of doubt, the family who'd turned their backs, the strangers who judged. Ethan listened, his heart aching for her pain, but also swelling with admiration for her courage. He'd never met anyone like her, and with every moment, he fell harder. One night, in her studio, Riley showed him a painting she'd been working on, a vibrant explosion of color. Two figures intertwined against a stormy sky. "It's us," she said, her voice soft. "You and me, against the chaos." Ethan traced the lines of the painting, his fingers brushing hers. "It's beautiful," he said, but he was looking at her. He leaned in, and when their lips met, it was like the world fell away. The kiss was tentative at first, then fierce, full of the longing they'd both been carrying. When they pulled back, Riley's eyes were bright with tears and joy. "I didn't expect you," she whispered. "I didn't expect this." "Neither did I," Ethan admitted. "But I'm glad it's you." Their relationship deepened, but the world wasn't always kind. Ethan noticed the stares sometimes on the subway, in restaurants when Riley's trans identity was clocked by strangers. He saw the way her shoulders tensed, the way she'd deflect with a joke or a sharp comment. It made him angry, protective, but Riley just squeezed his hand and said, "I'm used to it. Doesn't mean it doesn't hurt." One evening, they attended an art gallery opening in Chelsea. Riley's work on display. She was radiant, mingling with collectors, her purple hair catching the light. But as Ethan stood by her side, a man in a suit approached, his smile too slick. "You're Riley Hayes?" he asked, then leaned in, his voice low. "Heard about you. Quite the transformation." The words were a blade, and Ethan felt Riley stiffen beside him. Before she could respond, Ethan stepped forward, his voice calm but cold. "Her art's the only thing you need to know about. Unless you've got something worth saying, move on." The man backed off, but the moment lingered, a crack in their joy. Later, as they walked home, Riley was quiet. "You didn't have to do that," she said finally. "I can handle it." "I know you can," Ethan said, stopping to face her. "But you shouldn't have to. Not alone." Her eyes softened, and she kissed him, fierce and grateful. But the encounter stayed with Ethan, a reminder of the world they were navigating together. He wanted to protect her, to build a space where she could be herself without fear. But he was starting to realize that love wasn't just about moments of joy, it was about standing together in the storms. 2. As they lay in bed that night, Riley curled against him, her voice barely a whisper. "I'm scared sometimes, Ethan, that this is too good, that it won't last." He held her tighter, his lips brushing her forehead. "I'm not going anywhere," he promised. But even as he said it, a small part of him wondered if he could keep that promise in a world that didn't always make room for them. Months passed, and Ethan and Riley's lives wove together like threads in one of her paintings. Ethan's work advantage was thriving, was leading a new campaign. His designs splashed across billboards. Riley's art was gaining traction, too, her pieces selling faster than she could paint them. They were building something real, something vibrant. But the cracks were starting to show. Ethan's family, back in Seattle, didn't know about Riley. He'd avoided telling them, not because he was ashamed, but because he knew his father's conservative views would turn their love into a battleground. He'd hoped to keep Riley separate, a safe haven from his past. But when his sister, Claire, announced she was visiting New York, the truth couldn't stay hidden. Claire arrived on a crisp autumn day, her energy bright and curious. Ethan introduced her to Riley at a diner, nervous but hopeful. Riley was her usual self, charming, quick-witted, her purple hair a beacon in the crowded room. Claire liked her instantly, laughing at her stories, admiring her sketches. But when Riley stepped away to take a call, Claire leaned in, her voice low. "She's amazing, Ethan. But, is she trans?" The question wasn't cruel, just curious, but it hit Ethan like a punch. He nodded, bracing for judgment. Instead, Claire smiled. "Cool. She's still awesome. Just be careful with Dad. You know how he is." Ethan's stomach twisted. He hadn't told his father about Riley, but Claire's visit meant the truth would come out. That night, he called his dad, his heart pounding. The conversation started light updates about work, the city, but when Ethan mentioned Riley, the line went quiet. "A girlfriend?" his father asked, his tone sharp. "What's her deal?" Ethan took a breath. "She's an artist. She's trans. And I love her." The silence was deafening. Then his father's voice, cold and clipped. "You're making a mistake, Ethan. This isn't normal. You're throwing your life away." The words cut deeper than Ethan expected. He hung up, his hands shaking. When he told Riley, her face fell, but she didn't flinch. "I'm sorry," she said, pulling him close. "I know how much family means to you." "It's not your fault," Ethan said, but the hurt lingered. He loved Riley, loved their life together, but his father's rejection felt like a door slamming shut on his past. He started to wonder if he could ever bridge the gap between who he was and who he was becoming. The tension followed them. Riley's next art show was a big one, a solo exhibition in Brooklyn. Ethan was there, proud but distracted, his father's words echoing in his head. During the event, a heckler, a drunk patron, made a cruel comment about Riley's identity, loud enough for the room to hear. Ethan's blood boiled, but Riley handled it with grace, deflecting with a sharp quip that made the crowd laugh. Still, Ethan saw the pain in her eyes, the way she gripped her wine glass a little too tightly. Later, in her studio, Riley broke down. "I'm tired, Ethan," she admitted, tears streaming down her face. "I love you, but I'm tired of fighting the world. Sometimes I wonder if you'd be better off without me dragging you into this." "Don't say that," Ethan said, his voice fierce. He cupped her face, wiping away her tears. "You're not dragging me anywhere. I'm here because I want to be. Because I love you." She nodded, but the doubt in her eyes lingered. Ethan held her, vowing to prove his love, to fight for her. But deep down, he knew the world wasn't done testing them. Winter settled over New York, and with it came a chill that wasn't just the weather. Ethan and Riley's love was fierce, but the world's judgment was relentless. Ethan's father stopped calling, his silence louder than any argument. Riley faced her own battles, galleries hesitant to show her work after online trolls targeted her, calling her art political because of who she was. Each blow made Ethan angrier, more determined to protect what they had. They moved in together, a small apartment in Brooklyn filled with Riley's paintings and Ethan's design sketches. It was their sanctuary, a place where they could shut out the noise. But even there, doubts crept in. Ethan caught Riley staring out the window sometimes, her expression distant, like she was carrying a weight she wouldn't share. One night, after a long day at Vantage, Ethan came home to find Riley packing a bag. His heart stopped. "What's going on?" he asked, his voice tight. Riley didn't meet his eyes. "I got an offer to do a residency in San Francisco. 6 months. It's a big opportunity, Ethan. But I don't know if I should take it." "Why not?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. She was scared of leaving him, scared of what distance might do to them. "I don't want to lose you," she said finally, her voice breaking. "But I'm also scared of staying, of what this world will do to us, to you." Ethan crossed the room, taking her hands. "Then we'll go together," he said. "I can work remotely. Vantage has a San Francisco office. We'll make it work." Riley's eyes searched his, looking for a crack in his resolve. She didn't find one. "You do that?" she whispered. "Uproot your life again. For you." "Yeah," he said, his voice steady. "You're my home, Riley. Not this city, not my job. You." She kissed him, tears mixing with their embrace. And for a moment, the world felt right again. They spent the night planning San Francisco, a new chapter, a chance to build something stronger. But as they packed, Ethan's phone buzzed. A voicemail from his father. "Ethan, it's Dad. I'm sorry. I don't understand your choices, but I don't want to lose you. Call me." The message was a lifeline, but it came too late. Ethan's heart was with Riley now, and he wasn't sure he could forgive his father's silence. He deleted the voicemail, focusing on the woman in front of him. San Francisco was their future, and he wasn't looking back. But as they prepared to leave, Riley got a call from her gallery. A major collector wanted to buy her entire exhibition, but only if she agreed to downplay her identity in the press. It was a gut punch, a reminder that even her success came with strings. Riley's face hardened, and she declined the offer, her voice steady. "I'm not hiding who I am," she said. "Not for anyone." Ethan watched her, pride swelling in his chest. She was stronger than he'd ever be, and he knew he'd follow her anywhere. But as they boarded the plane to San Francisco, a small part of him wondered if love alone could carry them through what was coming. San Francisco was a new world, foggy mornings, steep hills, and a creative pulse that matched Riley's energy. Ethan settled into Vantage's West Coast office, his designs bolder now, inspired by Riley's fearless approach to her art. Her residency was a triumph, her paintings filling a small gallery with color and emotion. They were happy, but the cracks from New York followed them. Riley's confidence was a beacon, but it drew attention, both admiration and cruelty. Online, her work was celebrated, but so were the hateful comments, targeting her identity, her relationship with Ethan. She brushed it off, but Ethan saw the toll it took, the way her smile faltered when she thought he wasn't looking. One evening, at a gallery event, a critic approached Riley, his tone patronizing. Your work's powerful, but it's niche. Ever thought about toning down the personal stuff? Ethan's fists clenched, but Riley just laughed, sharp and cutting. My art is me, she said. If that's too much for you, that's your problem. The critic walked away, but the encounter lingered. That night, Riley was quiet, her sketchbook untouched. Ethan pulled her close, his voice soft. You don't have to be strong all the time. You know, I'm here. She nodded, but her silence spoke louder. Ethan knew she was scared not just of the world, but of what their love might cost him. He wanted to tell her it didn't matter, that he'd choose her every time, but words felt hollow against the weight of her fears. Then came the call that changed everything. Ethan's sister, Claire, was in a car accident in Seattle. She was stable, but the news hit like a freight train. Ethan booked a flight immediately, and Riley insisted on coming with him. You're not doing this alone, she said, her voice firm. Seattle was a homecoming Ethan wasn't ready for. His father was at the hospital when they arrived, his face lined with worry and regret. Seeing Riley, he stiffened, but Claire bandaged but smiling reached for her hand. You must be Riley, she said. Ethan's told me so much about you. The visit was tense, but Claire's warmth kept it bearable. Ethan's father stayed quiet, his eyes flickering between Ethan and Riley. When they were alone, he spoke. I was wrong, he said, his voice rough. I don't understand your life, Ethan, but I see how you look at her. I want my son back. Ethan's throat tightened. He wanted to forgive, to rebuild, but the hurt was still raw. I'm here, he said. But Riley's part of me now. If you can't accept that, we're not okay. His father nodded, a small step toward reconciliation. But as Ethan and Riley left the hospital, a new fear settled in. The world was still out there, waiting to test them. And Ethan was starting to realize that love wasn't just about fighting for each other, it was about fighting for themselves, too. Back in San Francisco, Ethan and Riley faced their future with new clarity. The hospital visit had shifted something Ethan's father was trying, however imperfectly, and Claire's support was a bridge between Ethan's past and present. But the real battle was ahead, building a life together in a world that didn't always make room for them. Riley's residency ended, and she was offered a permanent spot at a San Francisco gallery. Ethan's work advantage was thriving, his designs now infused with the colors and courage of Riley's art. They decided to stay, to make the city their home. But the hate hadn't stopped. Social media trolls targeted Riley's exhibitions, and Ethan faced whispers at work about his controversial girlfriend. One night, after a particularly vicious online attack, Riley broke. I don't want you to hate the world because of me, she said, her voice trembling. I love you, Ethan, but I'm scared I'm pulling you into a fight you didn't choose. Ethan took her hands, his eyes fierce. I chose you, Riley. Every day, I choose you. The world can throw what it wants at us. I'm not going anywhere. She cried then, and so did he, their tears a mix of pain and promise. They spent the night talking, planning, dreaming of a future where they could be themselves without apology. Riley decided to fight back through her Art Anew series, raw and unapologetic, celebrating her identity, their love, and the strength they'd found together. The exhibition was a risk, but it was theirs. On opening night, the gallery was packed friends, strangers, even Ethan's father, who'd flown in, his presence a quiet apology. Riley's paintings filled the room with color, each one a story of resilience, love, and defiance. Ethan stood by her side, the locket in his pocket, Riley's sketch in his wallet, their love a thread woven through every moment. As the night ended, Riley took the microphone, her voice steady. This is for anyone who's ever felt like they don't belong. She said, "You are enough. And you are loved." The crowd erupted, and Ethan's heart swelled. He looked at her, radiant and unbreakable, and knew they'd made it through the storm. Later, under the San Francisco stars, Ethan pulled Riley close. "I lost my luggage at the airport," he said, his voice soft. "But I found you. And you're everything." Riley smiled, her eyes bright with tears and hope. "You're my home, Ethan. Always." They stood together, the city stretching out before them, their love a light against the dark. It wasn't perfect, and it never would be. But it was theirs, and that was enough.